So we'll get started. So welcome everyone to Women in Investing Network, or WIN. And this is part of our Women's History Month podcast, which, got so busy that we're just going to continue. Women's History Month is every month anyway. So here we are in April doing our podcast for Women Making History is how I like to call it.
Oh,
And tonight's discussion is what ancient wisdom teaches modern women about wealth. And this, to me, is the original wealth blueprint. This is where, from what I'm learning, is where everything came from. So thousands and thousands of years of discovering the spiritual meaning of money, wealth, abundance, whatever you care to call it. So, and this is our last one for this year. And then next year we'll do it again. So today we're getting beyond the spreadsheets. I know, don't panic. We love our spreadsheets, but we're going to learn about the ancient spiritual laws around money and why they're more important today than ever. You probably have met people who make a lot and don't have or don't keep a lot, and maybe even they're deep in debt. You probably know some people who make very little. I could give you so many examples of people whose salary or paycheck or whatever, their cash flow from working is very little, but somehow they build more wealth than the person that's got the big paycheck, right? So it can't be about the dollars that you bring in. It's got to be something else. It's got to be. And I know lots of clients after 35 years of helping people get mortgages. I know lots of people in both camps. And I got to thinking maybe 20, 25 years ago about what is money anyway, right? And I really, from what I've discovered and felt, energy is money. Money is energy. And so if you don't use that energy properly, it will dissipate. It'll go to someone. Energy doesn't destroy itself. It's just going to go somewhere else. So I really more and more and more and more look at the spiritual laws around money. So I have been wanting to have a rabbi on to talk about money for a very long time. So I'm so excited to have someone help us, because as investors, we do the analysis, we seek the returns, but before you invest, you got to get your mind right, and you got to get your heart right. And if those are not in alignment, you might get that win, but are you going to build generational wealth? Are you going to help society? Because in the end, we can, just check your social media, not now, but you can see many examples of people who have lots of wealth and are not really probably using it in the highest and best use, right? Highest and best use in real estate, same with energy and money. So I'm honored to have you meet Rabbi Deborah Schuldenfrei and learn from her. I asked her to pick her 5 most important laws around wealth, abundance, money, and how we can apply that today. Because these are, like I said, laws that are more important today than probably they were in the beginning of time, whenever that was. So, Rabbi Deborah was raised in Milwaukee. She attended Washington University in St. Louis. Before she became a rabbi, she completed a joint master's degree in Jewish education and Jewish nonprofit management at Hebrew Union College. I like that hook. Hook or hook. As a student, Deborah was the education director in the founding year of ICAR. What's ICAR?
It's Ikar. It's pronounced Ikar. It's
Okay.
a spiritual community in Los Angeles with a very charismatic rabbi, Sharon Brous, who's sort of she's like on CNN and does a lot of pretty high profile stuff. She's pretty neat. She was the rabbi at the Women's March in Washington D.C. So
Okay.
yeah,
Wow. Heavy hitter. Okay. So
yes,
after ordination, she served as a pulpit rabbi at the congregation
it's
Shir
okay.
Hama'alat.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm close, of Irvine. And she has led high holy services, which I'm understanding takes a lot of energy and preparation, alongside Craig Taubman at the Pico Union Project. I'd love to hear about that.
Sure.
So the fun fact is Rabbi Schuldenfrei appeared in all the webisodes of Morgan Freeman's Story of God. If you haven't checked that out, check that out. So it's entitled Who is God? A Pastor, a Rabbi, and an Imam, the Story of God. She returned to the HUC as Education Director of the Graduate Program. Wow, that's big. As head of school at Valley Beth Shalom Harold Schulweis Day School. Wow, that's a mouthful. So Rabbi led the community through the COVID pandemic. That must have been something.
Hmm.
Yeah, wow. Every school teacher, every education director had huge challenges.
Yes.
Yeah. So most recently, she served as the interim senior rabbi at, oh gosh, I should have taken lesson
That's okay. I
on
mean, you're
the
Hebrew and you're
Tol Tikva.
yeah. I mean, you're Hebrew and you're Yiddish. You get like a gold star. You're just covered
Oh,
them
I got
both.
a story about that I got to tell you. Okay. Of Woodland Hills, and she currently serves as interim senior rabbi at the Temple Menorah of Redondo, but you're kind of closing that out. They
Yes.
found a new leader and you're
Yes.
moving on to your next
Yes.
thing. So I love the last paragraph. She is a lover of the land, people, and food of Israel. Reading, writing, movie watching, and yoga practice are her truest passions, and she's been part of the Institute for Jewish Spirituality for many years. I love that. Welcome, Rabbi. I'm so excited to have you. I
Thank
had to
you.
beg and plead. I had to I forget what I promised Jean Adelsman to get you here. It's probably to go to every function she ever has for the rest of my
Oh,
life. You know, who knows? I don't
that will
remember
be a
what I
very
promised,
full
but it was well
calendar.
worth it.
Yes.
Well
Thank you.
worth it. So welcome. I'm so
Thank you.
excited to have this conversation.
Thank you. I'm so excited too. I did prepare some slides if that
Okay.
works. I don't know
Yeah.
if you want to start by chatting more or if you want me to just dive into the slides and then we can
You,
chat after.
yeah, let's just dive in. Let's do
Okay,
that.
great. So before I open up the slideshow, I have to say two things. Is if you're getting financial advice from a rabbi, I
Yeah.
would tell you you might want to open a different door. So I'm not here to offer any financial advice
Right.
whatsoever. And then the second piece is just that I shared with Athena that I'm so thrilled to share what I would call about the spirituality of money. But being
Mm,
a Jewish person, especially in these times of anti Semitism, I wasn't going to be a Jewish person talking about money without just off the top hitting some major challenges, anti Semitism, and Jewish stereotypes about money. So I'm going to
thank
just
you.
do a quick 3 minute
That would be wonderful.
history of anti-Semitism because the money piece comes in a lot and there's a reason why and people don't always make the connection. So let's start there. So this is a wooden engraving from 1493. So we're talking about nearly 600 years ago at this point, and it is a bloodletting of a Christian child. The blood libel or the bloodletting that Jews needed Christian blood was a myth. And it was a myth that was propagated everywhere, and it caused a lot of problems for the Jewish people. It was part of the extended myth that when Jesus was crucified on the cross, that he had been killed by the Jewish people. Okay? So those are kind of the two core pieces of anti-Semitism, but then it led into other things because did not have the same civil rights as other people in most of Europe. So the
Mm,
myth is that Jewish people are greedy and money handlers.
mm,
One of the most prominent and persistent stereotypes is that Jews are greedy and they want to make themselves rich by any means. They're seen as relentless and as stingy. So that's so interesting. They're perceived as both extremely wealthy and in power, but also they don't spend any money. They're imagined to exert control over the world's financial systems, but are also accused of regularly cheating friends and neighbors out of a buck. All my research came from the Anti-Defamation League. There's hours and hours of material there if you want to dive deeper, just to show you some of the images that have been challenging throughout history. So that was 1490. This is 1940. So you see the Jews with their big noses and their ugly faces, Jews from America and Britain making off with all this money with this Red Sea parting, right? This Jewish image of dead soldiers over Europe. So that
where is this image from? A newspaper or it's a cartoon
yes,
of,
I believe this was. Oh wait, hold on.
it must have been printed in newspaper.
Yes,
I mean,
I
it could
believe
just
that's
be
where it
artwork,
came
I
from.
suppose, but
Yeah, or like
wow.
these anti-Semitic pamphlets.
Oh,
So
yeah.
okay, now I want to get to why Jews and money are associated in this negative way. Because Jews didn't have the same civil rights, in many countries of Europe, not only were they transported, exiled, deported from almost every single country in Europe, Jews have been deported from over 140 countries in the world, including countries like France, like England, like Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Spain, we might know because that was 1492 when Columbus left also. But anyway, Jews were prohibited from owning land and they were banned from particular professions. And Christian rulers would recruit Jews as creditors because Christians understood that they were forbidden from being creditors. So this created this complicated relationship between Christians and Jews, and it lasted well beyond the medieval times. And it made for leaders to position Jews as a scapegoat, as the cause of the common people's financial woes, which is exactly what happened with Hitler and also with other rulers over history. And it compounded the perception among some Christian theologians of Jews as immoral and devoid of virtue.
Wowza.
So this is the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was one of the many forms of propaganda used not only by Nazis, but by many different anti-Semitic groups. You see this one is printed in Chicago. It says the possession of these documents in Soviet Russia is punishable by death. Why? Every patriotic American must read these protocols. The protocols was a myth. It was a set of explanations that the Jews had all of the power in the world and were just biding their time until they took over the world. So you see again these stereotypes, this Jew with his ugly nose. This is a particular one who was a wealthy donor, Rothschild, and you see his claw satanic hands and his golden calf crown. I put these two images next to each other, but they're related but unrelated. So this one's from 1898. So we're talking about this is a real current one. So this was when Jews were
This
being
is current?
Yes, this is
by my
the coronavirus. So this was Jews being blamed for spreading the coronavirus. It not only spreading it, but then making the vaccine and having people buy it for their own financial gain. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, there's just so many complicated things.
Yeah.
So setting all that aside, unless you have questions about it.
I don't think, I was just, Carla's glad she's here to hear this. Me too, Carla.
Yes.
That's why I wanted so desperately to learn about this.
I mean,
I do know part of my family was what they call Huguenot, which all I know is it's Jewish people from France that had to leave all of a sudden.
Right. Or sometimes they were forced to convert and they kept their Judaism alive, even though they were converted.
And then I also have Christian family members who went through the same thing. So like you can't win, right? So
yeah. So
if you're persecuted, if they find a reason to blame you, they just find the reason to blame you, I guess.
Yeah. And so I'll tell you, like as recently as 2 weeks ago, I was with a nurse. And when she realized I was Jewish, she said, "Oh, well, that's great. Like I know a lot of Jewish people and they're all like really good with money." And I said, it's really uncomfortable that you're saying that. That's actually an anti-Semitic kind of trope. And she's like, "I don't understand what you mean." And I'm like, "Well, it's based on these myths about Jews and money. And so it's actually not," and she's like, "But I don't understand. Isn't it good to be good with money?" And I said, "I understand why you're saying that, but not in this way. Not for that reason."
Like it's a stereotype.
It's a stereotype. So it's like, it's so at people's fingertips. Sometimes they know it's a negative stereotype, but sometimes they don't, but they'll still say the stereotype, right? Like there's others who can do that too. Anyway, so we're going to start in the age of the Talmud, which is after the destruction of the Second Temple. We're going to be flipping through history a little bit.
Okay, great.
So there are religions, like let's say Buddhist monks, and they give up all their belongings and all of their money. And they say, "We're going to take care of each other and I don't need money." Judaism is not that way. Judaism understood that people and societies need money, resources, and learning to survive. And I wrote the statement this way because of the next teaching I'm going to offer, that in so many ways for Jewish people, money is just as important as their education. So these are the great rabbis from 70 in the Common Era to about 600 in the Common Era. And all of their debates and arguments are recorded in something called the Talmud.
Mm.
So here's a quote I want to share. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, "Where there is no bread, there is no Jewish law, scripture learning, Torah." The Torah is the 5 books of Moses. And so sometimes the Torah literally refers to that scroll or those books or that learning, but sometimes the Torah means like all of Jewish understanding. Okay.
Okay. And
So,
what's the Talmud then? That's different?
okay, so the Torah is the ur text. It's like the beginning text. The second text is and that's the story of the Israelites, the story of, so it's the story of the birth of humanity, which is Adam and Eve, the story of the flood of the earth, which is Noah's Ark, right? The story of Abraham, the first monotheist. So there's the general creation of the world with Adam and Eve, and then the creation of the monotheist that people believed in only one God, and then move forward there to the great story of the Israelites being enslaved by the Pharaoh and then being liberated. And then all of the other books after those two main books are mostly just Jewish law, tending to revolve around sacrifice in the temple. So those
Okay.
are the 5 books of Moses. And in the Christian tradition would call those probably the 5 books of Moses, and we tend to call it the Torah. Our Jewish
We call
Bible,
it the Old Testament.
yeah, so Jews don't call it that because we don't believe that our testament has been replaced or added to. So
Right,
we
right,
just call it the 5 books of Moses.
right. That makes sense.
So the Jewish Bible has other elements and books to it as well that I won't get into, but the Torah is the first text, and then everything from there is an expansion on that text. So first,
Uh-huh.
there's one called the Mishnah, where we're talking about a Torah text that was written thousands of years before, and suddenly these rabbis are living outside of the land of Israel with no temple. So they had to create a Jewish society that had nothing to do with sacrifice. So the Mishnah is the laws that were ancient laws that became modern laws in the rabbinic times. And then
Okay.
they had to argue about the laws. So the Talmud is the recorded argue. I keep doing a square because the way the Talmud page is represented, there's an idea in the middle, and then the rabbis comment all around it in a big block.
Huh.
And it's called like an intergenerational conversation because sometimes a rabbi is commenting on a rabbi from hundreds or thousands of years before. And that
Wow.
continues today.
That's super cool.
Yes. So this is a really important expression. All of the fundraisers use it. Where there's no bread, there's no Torah. So we use this expression in English too, right? Bread, money.
Hmm. Yep.
Like, and when you're hungry, you can't operate at your best. When you're hungry, you can't do well in the 4th grade. You can't study when you're hungry.
Yep.
And so, what this means is, even though the highest ideal is learning, you do still need money so that you can eat so you can learn. So,
Hmm.
right, like that's why I said people and societies need money, resources, and learning to survive. So, just I pulled this from a larger context. This is what he actually said. Where there is no Torah, there is no right conduct. Where there is no right conduct, there is no Torah.
Mm.
Where there is no wisdom, there is no fear of God. Where there is no fear of God, there is no wisdom. Where there is no understanding, there is no knowledge. Where there is no knowledge, there is no understanding. Where there is no bread, there is no Torah. Where there is no Torah, there is no bread.
Mm.
So to me, this is like a nutshell. Like we all need money. We need to fill our goals. We're not what's called like an ascetic tradition where you just
Right.
relinquish everything of your worldly. You need to live and function in this world. Okay?
Which is a tricky part, right?
Totally. All
Especially
right.
for artists, for people who are very creative. They're maybe not as we call grounded, you know.
Yeah.
So if you're super strong in one area, you may not be taking care of the other areas. I like how it's, yeah.
Yeah, it's a balance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we're going to talk for a minute about the Jewish concept of charity, because this is a really money, mostly when I was reviewing things, is all about charity and how we take care of other people. But the
Mm-hmm.
word charity is too limiting for what the word tzedakah in Hebrew means. The word tzedakah comes from the word tzedek, which means justice. So
Wow.
Jewish people are commanded to give tzedakah or do tzedakah, but it's not just putting money in a cup. It's making the world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
It's saying that my money is going to help align with what I believe the universe can look like.
Mm-hmm.
It's helping
It's not
others.
just money, but the whole idea of your time, your talent, your treasure, your
Yes.
giving of your knowledge to the next mentoring, for example, like all that.
And it's the assumption that the world we live in isn't perfect. And it seems most likely that when there are people, there will be poor people.
Mm-hmm.
That societies will always have poor people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that is ancient. I'm going to show you one of those ancient texts that understands that there's always going to be people who have more and there's always going to be people who have less. If you're not familiar with what a Torah scroll looks like on the inside, I think it's very beautiful. So I'm showing you here. And some of the
That's neat.
quotes I'm going to share with you today will come directly from that Torah. So the word tzedakah, and actually really interesting in Arabic, the word is very similar, tzedakah. Um, it's justice and law and social justice. Tzedakah can be the action of giving, like doing tzedakah. Tzedakah can mean the actual money or resources donated, like a bag of food to a pantry. And it also can be a nonprofit organization, right? So there's a nonprofit
Mm-hmm.
organization I love called Mazon that helps feed the hungry in LA and all over the world. And we call that a tzedakah. So we use
Okay.
this word to mean so many different things. And what I'm going to show you over this presentation is that tzedakah, even though it's giving of yourself, it's going to increase your wealth, at
So I
least in the
love
Jewish
that
understanding.
concept because I started saying like money is energy, right? So people who hoard or think I've got to put it under the mattress, I've got to like people who are afraid to give it up tend to have less. Like from my experience and my own personal experience, I remember I was so afraid of my budget one month a couple of years ago, and someone needed money from me. It was my father.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, should I give it? Should I not give it? And I never do that. But because that fear voice was like, oh, you better hold on to that. Maybe the other sister can help or whatever. And sure enough, I talked to my husband, and my husband's you know, uh not so much like he's very giving, very generous. Like he doesn't worry at all about things like that. So I decided, okay, you're right. I'm just going to give it to dad and you know, pray that the money still flows. And I never have this problem, but all of a sudden, this like putting on the brakes, right? Like fear took over.
Yeah.
Kid you not, the next day, someone rented my condo for almost to the same dollar that he needed.
It's
And
amazing.
I'm like, how much more proof do I need that you cannot? And it's not also the concept that it's not ours anyway. Like
Right.
I'm the channel, but this is not mine, right?
That's
This is
right.
I'm just the portal through which this energy, these whatever, it's flowing through me to others, right? So
That's right.
I don't know why I needed more proof after all these years. Like I'm not young anymore. Like how many times do I need God to prove to me? So I love this concept and is this high up the chain in your belief system, the whole charity idea?
Yeah, tzedakah is a pretty important Jewish value. It comes
And
across
is
in all
there a
sorts of ways.
percentage? Because this is a big argument
I'm
with
gonna
a
get
lot of
that. I'm
people.
gonna get
Okay.
gonna get
Okay.
right to that. Yes, I appreciate all of that. So I'll keep going, and I'm gonna answer.
Okay.
I'm going where you're going. Here we go.
Okay.
Okay, we're on the same journey here. All right, principle number 2. So I'm going back now in time. Okay, I'm going back from the 5 books of Moses, which we believe was recorded in 450, 350 BCE before the Common Era. The principle is that people, not God, need to help other people, right? It's not from the heavens will the help come. It's from the other people here on earth. This is the world in which we live. This is the world where we have to make the connections and offer the help. And so this is one of the earliest proof texts about how we provide for other people. And it is actually something that is still observed in the land of Israel, and also in a very personal way. I'll share that with you in a minute. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall not pick your vineyard bare, or gather the fallen fruit of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. So the custom was in the agricultural society that the corners of your field weren't yours. Everything that fell there, all the fallen fruit, belonged to the poor in your community, and they would come and take that themselves. Many of you might have seen a traditional Jewish boy or man that does not shave the front part of their earlocks, and they have almost like curls coming down. They're called payas. Payas means the corner, like the corner of your field. So their hairdressing, like literally their hairstyle, is a reminder of this commandment that we're not supposed to cut the corners of our field. So they take it to a very expressive level, this particular commandment and law. Again, it's that idea of like what's ours isn't ours.
Right.
Okay. This is now shifting to the Mishnaic period, which is before the Talmud, but after the Torah. So this is, again, after the destruction of the Second Temple, when the rabbis needed to figure out how are we going to rebuild this society without the sacrificial cult. So it dates like 70 to 270 Common Era. Who is rich? This is a Jewish thing that's about to happen. They ask the question, who's rich? He who rejoices in his lot, as it is said. And then what they do is they bring in another quote from the Bible as a proof text. They're like mathematicians about it. So this is from the book of Psalms, which you're familiar with, from Psalm 23, from funerals, from all Psalm 150, hallelujahs, all the hallelujahs is from here. So you shall enjoy the fruit of your labors. You shall be happy and you shall prosper. You shall be happy in this world, meaning where we are now, and you'll prosper in the world to come. So the good things we do now will help us in the world to come, which is kind of part of a vision, a messianic vision, or a vision of the eternal life of the soul. So it's about the impact we make here when we live with other people. How are we going to treat one another? That's what makes us wealthy. Sometimes it's translated as who is rich, one who, it's also who is wise, one who is happy with what he has. That's what you were talking about with the artists and the others, you know, people that might not make the same amount of money as these rich people who are miserable.
Yep.
Okay. So people that appreciate what they have, they are rich. Again, like I said, like, don't take my financial advice. You might not actually be rich if you're happy with what you have. In fact, you're probably not, because you're just not wanting more and more, right? Like the consumerist culture. Okay, so this I just think is really cool because people don't know. I don't know if there's any lawyers on the call, but the roots of American tort law come from Judaism, and specifically from the Bible, the Torah, that damages should be paid. Okay? If you break something, you buy it. But you don't just buy it. And this is where we're going to come into that idea about, you know, tithing or how much you owe. When a man or woman commits any wrong toward a fellow man, and that person realizes his guilt, he shall confess the wrong that he has done. He shall make restitution in the principal amounts and add 1/5 to it. So if I break your $100,
so 20%, is that what they mean by the?
You pay someone back the value plus 20%.
Yeah, right.
It's damage law, tort law. So I just thought that was really neat because it's a way of saying, you know, I value your stuff than even my own.
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't think of something else, but like if I break your $100 Walkman, right? I'm going to give you $120
Right.
because it was my fault. I have to own that. And
Mm.
you
Right.
deserve to have your stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And this is the one that like strikes the closest to my heart in terms of social justice, and very much in California. I think this is something we can relate to.
Mm.
Pay day laborers the same day they work. The sages stated, anyone who withholds the wages of hired laborer violates five, five laws and one additional law. In Judaism, we call them positive and negative laws. The positive laws are the do, like do love your neighbor, do, be kind, do feed the hungry. And the don'ts are like, do not covet, do not. So we call them positive and negative, but they're
Okay.
all positive or negative depending on what you do. He
Right.
violates the prohibition of do not oppress your neighbor. You've heard that. And the prohibition of do not steal. We've heard that from the Ten Commandments. The prohibition of you should not oppress a hired laborer who is poor, which comes later in the Bible. And the
Mm.
prohibition of delaying payment of wages. And
Mm.
he has not fulfilled the do mitzvah, the do commandment, on the same day you give him his wages. So it just appears again and again. If someone works for you, you have to pay them right away. You can't withhold the money.
Right.
He's violated the prohibition of the sun shall not set upon him. Now, when I think about the way our day laborers in California are often treated, this is
Mm.
not the value that comes to mind. And I
Mm-hmm.
just think it's so critical that people are paid for the work that they do, especially
Mm-hmm.
day laborers tend to be people that don't have the most consistent work or,
Mm-hmm.
the most comfortable lifestyle.
Yeah, and they don't, in general, don't have access to the credit system. So they don't have credit
Yeah,
cards. They oftentimes don't even have a bank account, right? So they need that cash flow in the
that's
moment,
right.
not they don't have anything, they have no bridge, right? They have no net or bridge to
Yeah,
carry them till
most
you decide to pay them or the whole idea of a paycheck every 2 weeks or whatever.
right.
It doesn't work in their life, right?
Doesn't work.
What
Right.
does
So
that mean? The sun shall not set upon him.
it means that because the Jewish days begin at sunset, that means you have to pay him before the sun sets.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. You can't let the sun set. You have to
Oh,
have paid
it's
them
so poetic.
before the end of the day. Yeah.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
repeated again and again. It's like, pay attention to this. This is really important to have good relationships in society.
It's so
And
funny because I panic when I think I owe someone money. Like I want to pay them. You're done the job. Good. Here's your money. Like
yeah,
and I'd never even heard of this. So it's interesting how it can be in you to do certain things. And then you read about them as being like a law, a very, very, very long tradition. You go, oh, okay. So I'm normal. I always thought like, why do I panic over paying people the moment that I owe them? It's interesting.
yeah. Okay, I said five principles, but then I threw in two bonuses. So
Okay.
here's your free gift with purchase. This is really interesting. From the Torah comes the concept of interest free loans. If you lend money to my people, to the poor among you, do not act toward them as a creditor, exact no interest from them. So this is really important again to counterpoint the whole anti-Semitism piece about Jews as creditors at the beginning. So
Hmm.
there is a custom in Judaism that if you are to give a loan, you do not charge interest on it. I can personally share that in my life, I've been in the position with certain people who've come to work for me where I've given them micro loans and
Mm,
I've been able to really help them, like all of those challenges you talked about, a day laborer,
mm,
because she had to fix a car so she could come to work or this or that. And then over time, she paid it off, but I didn't ask for interest. It was in my interest for her to be able to come to work, but it also is just the right thing to do as a good person.
mm.
So
Right.
I'm mentioning this also if anyone is on here. There used to be in every city in the country a Hebrew free loan society, and you didn't have to be a Jewish person to take on these loans. And it still exists. Now it's called JFLA, the Jewish Free Loan Association, and it's part of the whole umbrella of fundraising in Los Angeles through what's called the Jewish Federation. They're kind of the umbrella fundraising organization. And the majority of loans that are given out these days are not actually to Jewish people at all. But
Wow,
it's a
that's
fully
unusual.
interest-free loan, especially to start a business, get an education, things like that. So it's a great resource to
Mm-hmm.
know about.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the community banks in India. I don't know if you ever read that book, that Brahim or something like
The
that.
micro loans for women,
Yeah, the
and yeah,
microloans. The guy started a
yeah,
bank because all those communities just needed small amounts to get their little businesses going. And so I think it's called the Bank of Brahim or something like that. But yeah, the whole idea that it's interest free, but you put in and then other people take out. And
right.
I mean, that
Because
concept's very common in a lot of cultures, but
right, because the people who can least afford interest are the ones that can't pay anyway. Right.
hmm
I dealt with a lot as a head of school when we would do tuition assistance. And it was like we would put people on payment plans, but in order to get the payment plan, we had to charge them like to be in this program that would help us sort it all out. And it always
yeah.
felt like, why do I have to clock them with an extra fee just so they can pay their money spread out? It always really bothered me.
hmm Yeah, but how does a business continue if there's no cash flow?
That's
Like
right.
who's paying the clerk who's keeping the books, right?
That's right. You have
You
to have
know,
the insurance there that people are going to get paid.
yeah, so that's tricky to give, interest-free loans is a tough one. Yeah.
Certainly. Certainly.
hmm
So here's the conclusion and takeaways. And it's mostly about this idea of tzedakah or philanthropy. This
mm
was how you opened, Athena, about your values. Philanthropy is aligning money with your values.
mm
So when you learn of an organization, like I mentioned, Mazone, I love Mazone. Mazone feeds all different kinds of people. It feeds people internationally and in Israel and in Gaza. And it's both grassroots, and you can donate cans, but you can also donate money. And
mm
that's that. Again, if there's no bread, there's no Torah. For me, it all starts with hunger. And so, like, I donate my money to Mazone because it aligns with my values. It makes me feel like I've taken what I've earned and helped someone else who just can't earn right now or isn't earning enough to make it work.
mm
So,
hmm
tzedakah, justice, doesn't diminish your wealth, it increases it, right? It helps
hmm
us feel like we have a value in the universe beyond just shopping at Sephora, which is also fun,
mm
right? I
hmm
have an important value other than that.
Right, but just keeping the money flowing too, right?
Yes.
If you buy something that ends up on a shelf, whatever it is, I'm not judging. We all
Yeah.
want little thing, right? But if
Yeah.
you buy something that's inert, that sits on a shelf, it's not flowing through society and helping people, right? So that's my thing is, yeah, keeping the money flowing.
Sure.
Um, okay, so you touched on the tithing, giving, philanthropy part, which is huge.
Yeah, the
Um,
tithing piece, once I started going down that road, because I thought of that too, I was like, oh, she's going to ask me about tithing for the temple
yeah.
building. Okay, so there's a few different sources that I could have used. One is that in building the great tabernacle, everyone was asked to give half a shekel. Okay, it's like nothing. Meaning, if you're building this holy place, it doesn't matter whether you are the richest person or whether you have only half a shekel to give. Everyone comes together and is an equal builder in the holy dwelling place of God on earth. So that
Mm,
is a powerful idea, right? Especially now when we have naming opportunities in all of our nonprofits, right? Like
yep.
people get their name on the wall. When the temple was built, it was built with everyone as equals. It's a very democratic religion in a lot of ways. And the other beautiful spiritual message about what's called the half shekel, which is really the beginning of crowdsourcing, right? It's the
hmm
concept of crowdsourcing, is that your shekel only becomes complete when it comes together with someone else's
Oh,
because it's
that's
a half
beautiful.
shekel. So that's a really beautiful thing. So
Mhm.
that's not tithing. That was the original building of the temple. Okay. We
So
just
actually, crowdfunding came first.
yes. Yes.
That's
Okay.
amazing.
Yes. And then the tithing comes in a little later, and I want to say it's about 10%. And I
Okay.
forget that if that's biblical or Mishnaic. But then when I started, like, oh my goodness, I would be in the rabbit hole of 3,000 years of text if I
Yeah,
just like
right.
stopped out. It's like, I don't think she wants me to speak for that long.
Yeah. I mean, we have a full hour and we're not there. So yeah.
Yes.
So um so another thing that I saw is like living beneath your means, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like is that a spiritual law? The whole idea of um
That's a great question. And my guess is that people would answer that differently.
mm,
Um, the like if you talk about American Jews, what I would say is the way they've lived this is that they have done everything for their children to have an education.
mhm,
That's where all of their resources went. And that's kind of just classical immigrant behavior anyway, right? But
right.
that was especially true for Jewish people. The interesting Jewish part of that, right? No bread, no Torah, is that throughout thousands of years, when other cultures had people who were illiterate, Jewish people were pretty much never illiterate. Both
Mm,
the boys and the girls were always taught how to read.
mm,
So, again, it's just an interesting value about what's going to help you in life. Obviously, the reading was to study Torah and to, become closer to God, but there was a very practical value to being able to read and write,
right. Both boys and girls.
both boys and girls,
And
right?
this goes back a long time.
Yeah, I mean, the girls probably inconsistently, but there's lots of evidence of girls, even though they didn't have the same rights in Jewish life, they didn't have the same obligations, is what I should really say, according to the
Mhm,
tradition. There's lots of examples of women that were just as learned, if not more, especially
mhm,
if they came from a family where the father was the head of a yeshiva and he had no sons. The
mm,
daughters learned.
right. Because they were
Mhm.
going to take over. What's yeshiva mean?
Yeshiva means it's like a school.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that was the second thing I was going to share. For traditional Jews, and this is true in Israel and in some parts of like New York and other, where they're really traditional, like commandment bound Jews, the men actually don't work at all. They study
Okay.
all day in these yeshivas, in these houses of study and learning, and the
Uh-huh.
women raise the kids and work
Wow.
because the value is that you have to study
You're
and
right.
someone has to make the bread. She
Right.
has to earn the money for the bread and literally make the bread and feed the kids the bread.
Oh my God. See, I'm
So
not
that
sure I'm signing up for that, but okay.
yeah, so that is true in Israel. The professional people in those ultra orthodox, we call them black hat Jewish societies, are the women.
hmm Yeah, the
So
first time I saw them was probably in New York, but then I saw them everywhere in Jerusalem, I think.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So what about the multiple streams of income? Is that really something that the Jewish people are taught to not rely on just one source of income, or is that kind of a myth?
Um, wait,
Or
where
maybe it's old school. I don't
where
know.
do you say you're just a general financial principle? Yeah,
hmm
I mean,
Of not
again,
relying on one source of income, but having different, like your investments, like,
sure.
diversification, but from where you get your income.
Yeah. I mean, again, what I would say is that because of the civil rights issue in
Mm,
almost every country until this one. So we're talking only like 250 years.
mm,
250 years, that's it. Like Jewish people couldn't own land, they couldn't have
mm,
bank accounts sometimes, they often couldn't run their own businesses. I mean, you see this with like survivor families from the 1940s from Germany and other countries that their families had built these businesses, but it was all stolen from them. So there were
mm.
some countries where they were starting to gain stature and rights. But it was in a snap that it was all taken away.
Yeah. Well. Wow. Yeah, I noticed several countries have like they actually call it Jewish ghetto, right? Like they
So, so,
several.
so right. So the ghetto came in from the medieval times. Again, all this complicated time where they separated the Jewish people from the other people.
Hmm.
Different than the ghetto in the Holocaust, which was also a forced situation. But that word came from that medieval word from the ghetto, which I think
Mm.
is Italian. And in the 1930s, Jews were forced to live in one tiny corner of the major city where they were from. They often had 10 families living in their one apartment, and it was really just a holding place until they were deported to the death camps.
Yeah.
They contained them all in one spot and then deported them.
Mm.
And that's what we now think of as the ghetto. And then obviously that word got appropriated in the United States for areas that people call the ghetto in America,
Hmm.
which mostly
Hmm.
African
And now
American.
it applies to whatever neighborhood that's downtrodden.
Right.
Yeah.
Ghettoization. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. So one of the things that I looked up was the whole idea of delayed gratification and long-term thinking. A lot of cultures, especially now, because we wanted to hear about how are these principles going to be applied to modern women, our lives today. But it seems in reading that there's not a push, but an idea of to think long term, like the education of the kids, right? You're spending a ton of money right now so that in 20, 25 years, 30 years, those people, those beings are going to be successful, right? That's long term. Like most of us don't even think 5 years ahead, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
long term thinking, and that's education. You could argue that, but is there a theme of like thinking long term?
Um, I'll answer rabbinically, which is to say, I think there's both. Both opinions are true. Um, the long-term thinking is that everything we do in this world, it's not brownie points for the next world, but it's that this is where we live now, and we need to do our best to heal it and to make it better than the world we came from, so that the world to come. See, Jews don't believe the Messiah has come yet. They believe
Right.
that if they follow all these, we believe that if we follow all these commandments, we're the best people we can be, that we will harbor in the messianic time. So it's not necessarily selfish. It's about what would be best for the world would be if we lived in peace and harmony, and that's the messianic era. So you
Mm-hmm.
do now to bring that world to come sooner. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's both about living in the now and living in what is to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And can we come back to the whole interest thing? So I
Yes.
have a friend who believes in halal, which is that you should not, I guess, borrow money. Somehow you're not supposed to borrow money. So in Jewish culture, like how do you get a mortgage if you can't owe interest? The bank's charging you interest. So is that okay? You're just not allowed to charge someone else interest? Is that
That's
what it
what
is?
it says. But
Okay.
obviously there's many Jewish mortgage brokers. It's not a I mean, it's just about what's unseemly, right? It's about avoiding being unseemly. Like, is it reasonable to charge 2% interest? Like, I even know of a synagogue that lent another synagogue money, and they just did it at a tiny interest rate. It wasn't like this ridiculous situation. It's about what can we do to meet in the middle and be reasonable and not be trying to suck the money out of you, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's taking advantage, because the people that needed the mortgages are the people that need the most help. And then when you start charging them more and more, then you know you're taking advantage. There's no
Right.
question. So maybe we can't, just to go back to if there's no bread, there's no Torah. It's
Mm.
probably too idealistic to, like, the Jewish free loan societies are very small. They can only give out a certain money a year. So it's not reasonable for our society to operate on free loans all the time. But isn't it a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful thing to keep in mind if
Yeah.
we're doing either a microloan or something else, that we shouldn't just be going out of our way to make money off people that cannot afford to give us more?
Mm-hmm. When if you've ever lent money to family, you know, you it's there's or even friends. There's a weird dynamic between the lender and the borrower, right? There's a really I feel it in my heart. Some people feel it in their gut, but there's just a weird dynamic that gets created. So it's kind of better to say, pay me back if you can, maybe make a payment arrangement, but to demand payments from someone else, then if you are friends, now there's that thing between you, right? So yeah, that's tough. So let me just see. Do you guys have any questions? Go ahead and put them in the chat box. I would love to hear from you guys. So Sue says, yes, I think she was the lady who got my cat.
The cat,
It was
yeah.
just unbelievable to have these kittens just dropped off at a synagogue. Um, oh yeah. Carla asked how that's spelled, and I think
I wonder if she meant tzedakah, which I did. I'll put it
that,
in here.
but I was wondering about the one that sounded, because I'm a French speaker, right? So it
Oh,
sounded like maison, your the one that gives food. How do you spell that? Oh,
oh,
she,
mazon. Yeah,
uh-huh.
I'll even give you their website.
Mazon,
Yeah,
Mazon. Okay.
it means sustenance.
Okay. A similar sounding word in French means house. So
Yes, maison.
yeah,
Chicken maison.
there you go. Thank God
Best
for them.
lentil
Everyone's
soup.
learning French.
Best lentil soup in the world.
No kidding. Oh, okay. Okay. I was just looking at my notes here.
Sure. I know I went through a lot of material. And I don't know if there's other questions, but I'm happy to entertain questions from the chat.
Yeah, so we'll give them a second to put questions in there. Um, hmm. I'm trying to think of what else I just made short notes. I didn't realize you were so on it.
Oh,
So I was thinking the sixth secret, because we were going to talk about five secrets. So the sixth secret to me is teaching the children, right?
mm,
So there's a lot of people out there. I mean, I know I didn't learn, and my dad was a mathematician, PhD in economics. So there's practicality to money. And so to me, the sixth secret or the sixth secret might be, and I don't know if this is far back in Judaism, but the whole idea of teaching children about the value of money, delaying their own decisions or, gratitude. Do you teach them the tithing or the giving back? Like what is what is, what do you do around that? If there is anything you do around that, the teaching of children and the money.
that's a great question. I can answer it in an ancient way, and then I'll tell you about some really cool stuff we're doing at our temple ourselves.
Oh, okay, great.
So keep in mind that in the time of the Mishnah, right, which is around 70 CE, that a child became a Jewish adult at the age of 13.
Oh, wow. So they did
That's
have to
that.
learn quickly.
Well, that's a bar mitzvah, right? A bar mitzvah is
Yep.
13. It means that you suddenly have to take on the responsibilities of a Jewish adult. Okay. A girl would become of age at 12. Now, what you have to remember also is then they got married. Okay. So we're talking about, a society of very young people getting married. And again, societies that while they had money, there was so much more about trade and resources. It wasn't always about salary at that time. So much more of the Jewish wisdom tradition revolves around that type of uh, a scenario. But let me tell you about what our temple is doing today. So today, our temple is doing a program called the Tzedakah Teens. It's called, and it's basically there was a philanthropist that gave money so that teenagers could research their own charities and tzedakahs and social justice causes and learn about them all year and then determine what the allocation of that money was $500, $200, whatever. And they'd also have the opportunity to match that gift and to raise money themselves. So to really
Wow.
become engaged in fundraising, in learning, I always say fundraising is just telling the story. making it come to
Uh-huh.
life so that people can, like I said, philanthropy is aligning your money with your values. So someone can say, yeah, that really matters to me. Oh, that cause, it's not like for example, like I'm not as interested in causes about pets, but some people like really love all of the ocean and the pets and the shelters, and that's beautiful. But if you wanted to get me to donate, you'd probably have to talk about different types of passions. So
Yeah.
so it's a pretty neat program. I think it sort of helps with that investment side and about what do you do when you have limited resources. Because like
Mm.
sometimes at the summer camp we'll collect on Fridays, which is the beginning of the Sabbath, we'll collect tzedakah in a little can, like, and then at the end they have like $125 or they have $50. It's like, well, now what do we do with this money? So they have to decide like where the resource is going to go.
And you teach them how to research the charity and all that kind of stuff. You
Yeah,
help
it's a
them.
whole program. I
Yeah,
haven't
wow.
interacted it as much because someone else teaches it, but
Hmm.
I think it's a pretty incredible way to help kids think about the world,
Hmm.
because they live in a world where everything arrives at their front door from Amazon, and
Right.
their money, their money isn't in bills. It's just that's
Yeah,
money.
money is all electronic,
Yeah,
right? So
money
that's
is
kind of my
this.
point
That's
is like,
money.
yeah.
I mean,
So they don't really see the tangible, like
no,
they never had to count out bills and feel the pain of, that really hits home when you have to
yeah.
like, put that money in a piggy bank or a box or whatever, and then you have to take those actual dirty dollar bills and go, you know, hand them over to someone and count it out like, you know, that lesson has disappeared from young people's lives, right?
Sure.
So, yeah. And the whole idea of tax and, that kind of thing. I remember the first toy I ever bought. I went and I thought the toy's 14.99, so I gave them my $15. Oh, no, you owe us more. What? It's
Yeah.
like all these lessons about that stuff is
Yeah.
so important.
Or
Hmm.
on Friends, when Rachel Green says, who is FICA and why are they taking all of my money?
I
When
forgot
she
about that.
gets her
That is
very
funny.
first paycheck at the
Yeah.
coffee shop.
Yeah, and
Who
it's
is FICA?
shocking. It is shocking. Yeah, my first job was, I was getting $2.25 and I worked a whole week and I was like, well, because I could do math, I was like, should be this. And I'm like, where's the rest? It is shocking both ways when they take it from you and when you have to pay it both ways, both
Very
ways.
timely
So
discussion for tomorrow's tax.
there you go, right? Tomorrow's tax day if you haven't yet done it, which to me probably means you're not getting a refund if you waited this long. I know these things. So, what about the honest business dealings? One of the things I looked up. So, on YouTube, there's a few rabbis that have YouTube channels just around rabbinical ideas around money. And I just find it fascinating. It's kind of so, but I'm like, okay, is this their interpretation? Maybe who knows what they're trying to do. But
Yeah.
anyway, I don't know what the outcome or the goal is with it. But I thought that was fascinating that one person brought up like, uh, that for some people, just being honest in business and being upfront, and it kind of reminds me of the pay the day labor on time when they're like having that reputation of just being on time and being honest. And your other example of, admitting to a fault, although admitting to the crime, I don't know how many people would do, but having honest business dealings, is that a high value?
Yeah, I would say
I
that's
mean,
kind of
it sounds
underlying
weird,
all of
but
it,
is
right?
that something that's,
Well, think about the visual of the corners of your field, right? If you were taking that for yourself, everyone would see you doing it.
hmm,
And people see it left out there. And then, at night or whenever someone would come and take it in their privacy, right? And then
right?
it would be gone. And then people would know you fulfilled that commandment.
Hmm.
So,
And it's kind of a trust knowing you're a good person because you follow that.
well, and I guess I would call it transparent, right? It's literally something you could see in uh, in their values,
Mm,
in their fields, rather, that you could
right.
see their values in their fields.
Mm. I love that. I love that. And so this isn't really a money thing, but it's on my mind a lot. So what do you think about the blue collar work versus the white collar?
Again, I go to that idea. Oh, wait, someone wrote a chat. We'll read that in a second. Oh, it's Sue. Um, yeah, I mean, I think about this a lot.
That's a big debate, and the cost of education is so high. And I'm hearing that the Jewish community, I do admire that so much that they are willing to go to the nth degree to make sure that their kids are well educated, not just book learning, but in their church, right? I think it's probably the most deep uh, spiritual practice as far as that goes. Um, and yet, it's costing so much. Are these kids really getting their money's worth, or are the parents getting their money's worth? Um, and I think a lot of parents tend to push kids to go as far as they can because we want the best for our kids. But by the same token, you can make a lot of money in trades that are just disappearing. The average plumber, I think, is 50 or 55, like, you know, so I'm just curious about what your thoughts are, or if someone came to you, what would your advice be to them?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, having worked in a school, there's all different kinds of learners and students. And some students are just not going to go to Princeton. And some students actually aren't even going to go to community college,
Right.
but they have something to give and a way of earning money. So again, if we go back to this biblical concept, and there were other quotes that they, when you say for the poor among you, it means there's always going to be people with more and less. There was just this absolute recognition that in a society, there's going to be people that have and people that don't.
Hmm.
So the question is, how much should that plumber be paid, right? And I see, like with my kids, because my father and my grandpa were very handy, and I learned a lot of that. And my kids
Hmm.
just don't know how to do or fix anything. Now they can go to YouTube and do it, but sometimes you start something and you're like, and someone did it on YouTube, but that doesn't mean I can do it.
Yeah.
So it could be that the future is that suddenly all of these things that people have avoided doing because they were considered blue collar become so much more valuable because not everyone knows how to do it. I don't know.
Right. Yep. Yep. And I think those labels are also probably going to go away, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
you
that's
know.
also probably a very American,
Hmm.
thing. I was talking with one of my kids about the caste system the other day, and they were just like, "What? Like, what are you
I know.
talking about?" And it's,
Yeah.
it's a different world.
Yeah. And we don't really teach those things too much in school anymore, from what I can tell. I don't know what they teach, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. Let me just check your question and answer box. I don't see any, so I guess we're good. Let me just scroll down just to make sure I didn't forget.
So Sue's asking, I think this is a question for
Oh,
you,
I see
which
that.
is, yeah, proper financial education
Yeah.
that it's lacking.
So I'm concerned that people are not getting a proper financial education. I was lucky to learn a lot about investing at home, but I would love to help young uh, people learn basics. I would love to do that. So I have been asking Torrance Unified for one. I haven't spread out but I've been asking them to do like a mini class series on money.
Uh-huh.
And I had one high school teacher tell me I could guest speak at his economics class, and I said, I'm willing to do that. But a series on just the basics of money, because just even credit cards, people don't realize just even the minimum. I had a lady, she owed $300 on her credit card, and young woman, and she was paying $25 minimum per month. And I said, do you realize if you pay 25 times 12, that's also $300? So you owe $300 and you paid them $300. It's not good and it's not paid off, you know, that's going to last a long time. So I did do a series for the Girl Scouts and the Brownies. I did two classes for the young girls who I think the Brownies are like 7, 8 years old, and then the Girl Scouts, I had a class or a group of 13, and I developed a little money class for each group. And that was fun, but you have to find the moms who are part of Girl Scouts to
Um,
come and do that badge over and over. So there's
mhm.
ways to do it, but yeah. Um, yeah, we really need to do better, financial education, not just money, but just everything under your credit report and all of that needs to be developed so young people know what they're getting into. Otherwise, they go to college and there's all this line of tables and you just have to sign your name and boom, you got money, and they're not taught that, yeah, it has to be paid back and how often and all that. So, um, people get into trouble. So it would be very nice. So Sue, I will join up with you if you want to partner. We'll find find a good good way to go at. I don't know, because the school system has a curriculum, right? So that's the thing. You have to somehow work it in there, and I don't know how to do that. Um, and then with the Girl Scouts and stuff, you just have to find moms who are part of it and keep getting tossed over once their kids graduate out. You can go. I did help also a girl get her is it gold badge or something like the highest up thing they can do.
Right.
And her choice was to do something around money. I helped another girl with got her time with the League of Women Voters. She volunteered and wrote a paper, but yeah, so that's kind of the opportunity because the school system is very rigid and practical things of life are not really taught, which bums me out. So hopefully we can change that. Okay, well, but at least we got together with you ladies and we had a really good discussion. And Rabbi, I am so happy you came. You finally, I know you're super busy, so to get you on the calendar and has spend time with you and your presentation was wonderful. So thank you so much for your time and your energy and
Absolutely.
inspiration.
Thank
It's
you. And I
wonderful.
think it's really important to do these things for women. Like we didn't even start off by saying like I'm a woman who's a rabbi and like that
Yeah.
that alone is such an innovation within Judaism. And so
Mm.
it's upon us as women to be models. And so often, intrinsically girls don't learn how to handle money the same way boys do. And so
Hmm.
that's really important. I know, so good for you. I mean, good for you. Um, I know that Carla was asking about more resources, so I shared my email address, and you can all reach out to Athena if you want. I'll put it here in the chat, but I'm happy to answer more questions. I talked about so many different topics over the thousands of years that I'm happy to. Uh,
Yeah, this is fascinating.
do you see? Oh,
So,
wait, I'm typing to the host and the panelists. I'm so sorry. This was I'm so sorry. I'm so glad you said something. Uh,
oh, and Q&A.
yeah, I got it. Menorah.org. Okay. So now I realizing anything's, so I have sent all of these resources to you, Athena.
Okay.
Let me share these I have articles and the Mazone website. Hold on one second. Move it
And
to
in the Q&A, Carla asked, Deborah, do you know online courses regarding the subject you discussed tonight? Which would be
uh,
giving, I guess, philanthropy, that tzedakah.
I mean, let me share some of my favorite Jewish, because like there's an endless number of Jewish websites, and some of them are not approved. So let me give you some that are approved. Okay, so I just gave
Okay,
you a whole bunch. Um,
awesome.
I think I covered all the things that I thought I had already been sending to everybody. Let me double check.
And I actually have the chat. So if you guys didn't
Yeah.
catch something or you
Okay.
whatever, just contact me and I can do that. Or of course, you can contact the rabbi directly.
Yeah. So here's a few websites that I trust. One is called My Jewish Learning. If you type in it's either myjewishlearning.org or myjewishlearning.com. I trust
Mhm.
that website. It is not extremist, it is mainstream.
Okay.
The other one is the Union for Reform Judaism. I'm a Reform rabbi, and I think it's urj.org. I mean, they just cover every topic in Judaism in general, but certainly tzedakah would be covered on all of those. Those are kind of two of my top hits. A lot of people do use if you're familiar with the Jewish organization called Chabad, a lot of people use their site for educational purposes, and I do sometimes as well. Just know that it's not a liberal perspective, it is a more of an extremist orthodox perspective. So
Mm.
all of the content is true and real, but like you said, the way we interpret or read it, the conclusion that someone from Chabad would make would probably be different than what I would say. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because
Okay,
they
that makes
wouldn't
sense.
really consider me a rabbi at all. So, but it
Right.
doesn't mean that what they talk about isn't helpful or something to learn. There's beauty in all of it.
Mm-hmm. How
Yeah.
many women rabbis are there in the US, would you say?
So, just celebrated, I want to say, is it the 50th, 1976? Is that the 50th? See, the rabbis and math. 50th year of ordaining women in the reform movement. Now, at first,
Okay.
it was like one woman in a class of 24, right? But
Right.
slowly, it started to change. And I was ordained in 2006. That means I started rabbinical school in the year 2000. So 25 years later, half of the people being admitted to rabbinical school were women.
Wow.
So
So that is
slowly, so
progress. Yeah.
similar to medical school or law school, I think the trends followed. And what's very interesting is that so many of the women's rights leaders were all Jewish women. Gloria Steinem, and I mean, I could go on and on.
Yeah.
So that made a
Interesting.
difference because they were asking for societal change alongside what was happening in their religion.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a lot, but it's all tied together. So I guess if you tackle one. So I see Sue has her hand up. I don't know. I'm gonna just unmute. So Sue, I don't know if you want to speak, but I invited you to unmute yourself.
No, I don't have my, are you there?
Yep.
Yes.
I don't have my hand up. I didn't know how to use it.
Oh,
But I did send you, Athena, with your old phone number and address. I did send you a message, but your address email wasn't right. I don't know if you've changed your phone number either.
No, same phone number.
Okay, so you'll get a text from me when you look then.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, sounds
great.
good. Thanks, Sue.
I don't know what organization this is with. I've never, like you said, you
Yeah,
keep,
so this is I think you signed on maybe just after I gave the little intro, but this
oh,
is
I'm sorry.
this is a group called Women in Investing Network, or WIN, and I'm the founder. And it's a group of women that uh we get together we're like-minded women who want to raise each other up in our financial growth. And then also, so I interview people who have gotten out of the rat race or become financially independent and tell us just exactly how they did it. And then businesses that are run by women that help us build our wealth. So those are the two kind of
Oh,
people that I invite to come talk. And then I have a special group who are women who have a certain net worth that focus just on how they want to give back.
oh,
So
interesting.
that you have to be invited because, I know
Yeah.
your yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Well, this is wonderful it's so enlightening to know we're doing so well as a sex, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's true, right? Yeah, and my business in my area of business, it's mostly men, right? So it's usually the support people are women, and then I'm the one woman amongst 10 or 12 males, right? Or maybe 20. I don't even know what the number is anymore, but yeah, finance is kind of a male dominated thing. So I just felt like women need a place where they can go talk about money
Sure, for
just
sure.
amongst ourselves, without the mindset, because men think about money very differently than women do. Um, and so, yeah, so I just felt that that was a need. And actually, Women in Investing is going to be 10 years old this September. I've been doing this
Wow,
10
mazel
years.
tov.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
been an interesting journey for sure.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
good. I'm glad to hear
Okay,
from you.
thank
We'll
you again.
catch up.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay. So thank you, everybody, but especially thank you, Rabbi, for
you.
I'm just gonna I got Sue
Someone just
still in the
flattered you by
screen.
saying they're waiting for you to create a hedge fund. So
Oh, right. Sure, I'll put that on my list. Well, anyway, so thank you so much for coming and sharing more. So thank you. And please let us know however we can support by email anytime.
Thank
We'd
you.
love to support you and the school. So let us know. And I hope everyone enjoyed and got something out of this. I certainly got a ton out of it. So thank
Well, it's
you.
great to meet you. Thanks for the
Yeah, good to meet
opportunity.
you too. Okay.
Okay,
Good night,
bye.
everyone. Bye.